Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collecting. Today we're going to be taking a look at James' collection, and James' collection is one that I call a maturing collection. And there's so many interesting aspects about the process of what James has been doing. James is 19 years old and he's got the watch collecting. It's an enthusiasm beyond just about anybody I know, and it's a wonderful one. And being young, he doesn't have the kinds of resources to get the most expensive watches or the watches that he wants, but you can see that the collection is maturing and ends up at to me anyway, at a point where in the future some very exciting kinds of watches James may have. He may end up being a watchmaker. He really is into watches. He went to work for Fossil, I think, for a while, and then moved to the London area and went to work for another watch company. This is a guy that's really into watches. He's 19 years old. He may be 20 by now. But anyhow, he's very enthusiastic with watches. So let's take a look at James' collection. The first ones I want to take a look at are ones. These are a couple sort of at the bottom, and these are a couple quartz, but they're interesting quartz. It's a Seiko King's quartz and Saganda quartz. The Saganda quartz is looks like a good-looking diver watch, or at least a sports watch, and the King's quartz is dressier. Very interesting guilloche on the it's not guilloche, but it's something like that that's on the dial. Okay, now here is some vintage watches, and there's several different kinds of them. Now on the bottom row you have three different kinds of Citizen Eagles. They're all Citizen Eagle watches, and they're all different. You can take a look at the bezel on each one. Has a different bezel on it, different color, different kinds of straps. Very interesting three watches there. Now the other one, the ones that on the top row are ones that I'm not that familiar with. It's called the Rateca. And the Rateca, there's a couple different kinds. One is one is called the Saganda Rateca. They're a couple 36 millimeter watches, and they're vintage and they have a variety. Now these are very affordable watches. Okay, now going on, and we're getting into a little more interesting territory here. The Lomtech is his biggest watch. That's 44 millimeters. That's the one up in the upper right corner there. And on the bottom, there are a couple watches that I thought were interesting. The Revolo, I can't say that right. Revolo, sorry. Anyway, it's a good-looking watch, and again, it's very affordable and not one that a lot of people have heard of, which is interesting. I like watches that come out of left field, so to speak. They're interesting. Have an Oris. Now the Oris is starting to begin to sort of, you might say, to begin to move out of the pack, so to speak. So's a Lomtech, really. They all are on this group. So you're getting a little different kind of watches in this collection. Okay, now here is one of the most interesting things that I found in James' collections. He tried on a Rolex Daytona Paul Newman, and the price on these things is all over the place. I sort of put in about 50,000 pounds, and this one, I've seen them up over 100,000. So I was trying to find somewhere in the middle, but it's a beautiful watch. It's the Rolex Daytona Paul Newman. Now, what James did, he tried it on, loved it. This is sort of a grail watch for him now. And so he went out and he bought an Alpha, okay? And it's the Alpha version of the Paul Newman Daytona. It's not a replica, okay? It's called an homage to the Paul Newman Rolex, and it's only 145 quid. Well, I mean that's not. I mean that's not nothing, but it's certainly what is affordable. And the idea of a watch company like Alpha having watches that, while not replicas, look a lot like the one that you really want to have. And so in the meantime, while you're accumulating the kind of resources that you need to get what you want, you can have something, and I sort of don't see it as trying to pass as a Rolex. Alpha certainly doesn't do that. But bigger in life, it says Alpha, so you're not. James isn't trying to fool anyone, but he likes the looks of it, he likes the feel of it, and this is something he'd like to have. So why not get something like an Alpha until you can get to the other point? It's sort of like a reminder. It has another Alpha there, Alpha Explorer Blue. I'm guessing the Explorer is an homage to the Rolex Explorer. But that's a solution, an affordable solution, and it's not a replica. Thank God. I mean, the worst thing you could do, I think, is to get a replica. But these, they're not a Rolex, but they have certain features of it, and sort of fun to have. So I like that, and I think it's a good idea for a young person who's really serious about watch collection. Okay, now the final two watches, they're going to take a look at, and there was, I think, close to 20. Watches. I don't know if we hit them all, but we hit most of them, or at least so we didn't get into too much redundancy here. Two watches, a Tudor and a Nomos. Now the Tudor is closer to that Grail watch, closer to the Daytona Paul Newman than the Alpha in this respect. Tudor is made, or at least it's owned by, Rolex, and it has a lot of the the Rolex culture to it, the Rolex of making excellent watches, and so when you start having watches like that, now I like Tudors anyway, especially the newer ones with their own in-house movement and so forth, and so that's a good one too. That Tudor is a nice. It's the kind of thing it could go as a sports watch, or you could wear it to work, and it looks good. Even as a dress watch, I think could get away with it. A black usually is a little more formal, so for a dress watch. The other one is another one of my favorite, the Nomos, and I like the Nomos. These are affordable favorites. I'll call them that, affordable favorites. Now, Nomos was recommended by Philippe Dufour, who's a grandmaster watchmaker. And it's a beautiful watch. It has that Bauhaus, the best of Bauhaus. It's not Bauhaus. Bauhaus can go two ways. It can either be clean and sleek, or it can be boring. The one that James has, I think, is clean and sleek. I love that watch. So you can see how it's matured from a collection of Citizens up to these two watches. Now, usually what I do at this point, after I've gone through the watches in a collection, is I have some suggestions. First of all, James, don't lose the kind of wonderful passion that you have. By the way, too, James has a very successful channel. It's a watch channel, a YouTube watch channel called It's Kibble Talks Watches. It's James is and very successful channel, I might add. So you might want to take a look at that too. Okay, so what I'm recommending for James is pretty much, heading in the direction. One recommendation I would make: he's got a lot of watches, or a little too much, what I might call similarity. Now, what I think would be a direction to start taking is sort of what is less is more. Is that these two examples are what I'm talking about here. It's better to have fewer good watches than a lot of ones that are either A, the same, or B, nothing. Okay. The homage watches, those are okay too, I guess. It'll sort of keep you focused on what you want. But like I said, when you get a Tudor, you're closer to a Rolex than you are with Alpha, okay? Of course, you are closer price-wise too. You're starting to move up in price. But I'm sure, James knows a lot of the resources and places and the tricks, and he's been working in the watch business. And so I think it's like super cool. Here's a guy that is, someday we may end up hoping to get one of James' watches as becomes a famous watchmaker, sort of another Roger Smith from England. Anyhow, again, I want to thank James. James and I had a deal. He's going to review my collection and give me some advice on his channel. So we have mutual reviews. I haven't done that before. Anyhow, this is Bill Sanders for WatchArtSci. This is an invitation to subscribe, and above all, please leave a comment. Tell me what you think of this. And remember, now you get different watch collections come from different places, and I think this is a very interesting place and very interesting what James has done, and I'd like to get your opinion too. All right, until next time, for WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collections, Bill Sanders.